we can wrap up. Who are we missing? We're missing Jan. We got Dwight. Okay, we're going to resume our meeting, get everybody settled back in. Okay, thanks for letting us take that break, guys, and I'm just going to turn it right back over to you, Alex, for continuation of your presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. Before I get into the rest of our slides, and I promise we don't have too many, I did get some answers to some of the questions that have already been asked, so I'll provide those answers before we get into the rest of our presentation. For the baby benefit, there was originally a dollar amount attached to that proposal, but the enacted budget does not include a dollar amount. So what that means is that the state agency administering this, likely social services, will be responsible for coming up with an amount that is suitable for the appropriation that they have for this. It will again likely be a few $100s, which is what was originally proposed. For the opioid settlement reporting, the legislation takes effect immediately, and then by November 1st of every year, the county has to post that information on their website and send it to OASIS. So November 1st of this year is when you'll have to be in compliance with that new requirement. For the county partnerships program, or the county infrastructure grant program, there is $500,000 available to each county for a project that is not related to housing. And if the project creates at least 10 new housing units, you're eligible for a $1 million grant. There's no requirement that those be affordable or low-income housing explicitly as part of the program description, but there may be additional parameters that ESD has as you continue to have conversations with them. So I'll keep you posted on any other information we hear related to that. I did look at some of the projects that are eligible for that funding. It includes road, water, sewer, and utilities, construction or extension, site preparation, demolition, acquisition of properties to support infrastructure development, and then other capital uses approved by Empire State Development. And then lastly, on the community college proposal, students are eligible for free community college tuition if they complete a degree in one of those high in-demand fields, if they're between the ages of 25 and 55, and if they have not already obtained a post-secondary degree. I remember there being a lot of debate about this because the goal is for people to be able to retrain in a new industry if their industry is no longer available where they're working. So there might be changes to this down the road to allow folks who have already obtained one college degree to get another one, but that's the way the legislation is written as of right now. Any questions about any of that before we move on? Okay. Oh, could we advance to the next slide? Sorry, my clicker isn't working anymore. Thank you. Perfect.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. So on public safety, we'll start with EMS. NICEX priority for this, and we've heard from so many counties that you've had issues with emergency response time in your counties, that municipalities have not been able to keep up with the cost of EMS service. NICEAC really wanted an increase for the rates paid to providers so they can continue to provide these services. And we also wanted additional taxing authority, so counties could create a taxing district or support some towns, cities, and villages that wanted to create a taxing district, in doing so to provide more cost-efficient and just effective service. Ultimately, these proposals were not included in the final budget, and I want to turn to Pat to elaborate on this. But we ultimately got to a position where they were trying to create a new requirement for counties to step in and provide EMS services. That's not something NICEAC could be supportive of. We know not all counties want to get involved in this, but I'll defer to Pat to provide some more detail.
Yeah, I mean, as you all know, it's EMS is mostly a town and city function. Counties we're looking to help out because we're losing more volunteers everywhere. This is a vital service, and there were already proposals of making this regional, and so would a county-wide service work? we were definitely at the table and wanted to help with options on that. The one thing just couldn't have, though, is this becoming a new mandate on you. Like that you were forced on this, these costs were forced on you. So we were looking for flexibility. We're looking for county options if you want to do this, if you want to use your general fund for this, but then not be stuck with that obligation necessarily if that happens, and or special taxing districts to pay for this if we're going to pick up those costs. And honestly, what we really wanted was state fiscal help if we were going to get involved in this service. Things got close, and there was a lot of back and forth. But then one of the concerns too was liability protection and what are we taking on here? And ultimately, I think the clock ran out. I think this is going to be back on the table in whether it be future as the session keeps going or next year. This problem's not fixing itself. It's especially in upstate. We've got a lot of distance between hospitals and homes. We're getting less and less people that are in this field. Hopefully things like the community college bill will help with getting more workforce, but getting the supplies we need on a government level to do this, we're hearing more and more from the towns and villages and cities that do this, that they are struggling and they need help. And so hopefully we can get a state partnership, and then if you so opt as a county to help out, we'll hopefully get something in the future. But again, I know there's a lot of noise on this issue. Just be aware that nothing passed yet in this field to allow for more county flexibility in this field.
And this could still come up before the end of session. We're still making it a priority to get some fixes to the EMS system. We're just not going to accept a mandate on counties to provide this service, and so that's what killed negotiations this time. Also, on public safety, a lot of new public safety funding. Some of the appropriations included in this year's budget is $80 million for DCJS, $65 million for anti-gun violence, $20 million for pretrial services, $10 million for threat easement management teams. There is another round of funding for Raise the Age, in addition to last year's nearly $1 billion appropriation. And then there is $6 million for reentry. Something we've been really pushing in relation to Raise the Age is getting rid of the tax cap link. So right now, if your county were to exceed the property tax cap, you would not be eligible for Raise the Age reimbursement from New York State. We know there's a couple of counties that are losing out on funding because of this, and it really makes no sense for the two of them to be linked. We pushed really hard for this to be included in this year's state budget, and it ultimately wasn't, but this will continue to be a priority for us during the rest of session, is delinking those. So should you need to override the tax cap, you won't lose out on the state funding. There's also language in the state budget to allow the governor to close 3 more prisons. I don't know if Pat has any intel. I don't have any more intel into what prisons they're considering right now, but we know this is something counties care deeply about and will continue to follow it.
Yeah, it was included in the budget. I don't know if this was the governor's priority or if it was the legislature that put it in. I do think this was there's always something called at the end of session and the budget that you don't even see some language, and they call it the last bill in the budget. The budget's made up of 7 or 8 different bills. And whichever one the last one is, they call the big ugly. And so they throw a bunch of stuff that you're like, wow, I didn't know this was going to be in there. This was like part BBB of the big ugly. This was the last thing included. Somebody wanted this and prioritized this. So the reason I bring up, though, who did it, who wanted it, it's in the governor's hands to potentially do this up to 2026. I don't know. I don't want to ever speak for the executive, but I don't know if this will be a priority to happen or not. This might have been like a legislative priority that they gave her that option, but something she doesn't want to necessarily take. Yeah, Gary.
$250 million for Raise the Age added to, what was it, $985 million? What the heck is all that money supposed to be doing?
So my understanding is that this is for the cost of compliance with the Raise the Age statute. I am not sure what actual expenses this is covering, so I can definitely talk to my colleague Brian and follow up, unless you know
Housing,
more.
right? I mean, it's primarily housing costs.
I think staff and contracts and services, but there's a portion of it that's housing. And I think our Raise the Age last year, Terry, was 400,000 was sticking in my mind. That wasn't for housing, that was for our services, contracts, and staff time.
Yeah,
On how many people?
That I don't know, we could ask how many, but we'd have to get a report from Don probably.
counties provide essential services. One of the most important, but also one of the most costly, your family court costs. And so when they raise the age, you're talking about more people in family court. And then whether they're going to services or even detention centers out of family court. I used to work there in Schenectady County now about 15 years ago. Even back then, I was always amazed at some of the costs that this are associated with this. But again, really important work and needs to be. But I would I think getting a breakdown and understanding of your family court costs, you'd be surprised to see how much we do in that world, but also how much we spend to try to help that group.
Sorry. Okay. I sent the question to my colleague Ryan, who covers public safety issues for us, so hopefully he'll follow up soon. When I sent him that question, I saw he also responded to 2 of the other questions we received, so I want to cover those as well. There is no federal limit on how much counties spend on Medicaid, so that is something we've been pushing for. I know that we've been pushing for a small portion of the program, obviously, to be covered by counties at a maximum something less than 25%. But there's currently no limit in place. And then for the daycare funding, the state did run out of the block grant funding for childcare, but there's more money coming. So Allegheny should be paid whatever it was owed for childcare services. Any follow-up on that before we keep going? Awesome. All right, transportation, a bunch of money here that we are always looking for in this year's state budget, and most notably, there was a $50 million increase for CHIPS. This is the Consolidated Highway Infrastructure money, something we fight for every year for our roads, bridges, highways, and we're very happy to see an increase. We'll continue to push for an even greater increase in future state budgets, recognizing the need across the state for infrastructure repair. There's also $100 million for Save Our Potholes, $150 million for Pave New York, $200 million for Bridge New York, $100 million for extreme winter recovery, and $140 million for touring routes.
Those all increases.
I think some are, but not all.
Yeah,
So
CHIPS is an increase, and I believe the other ones are consistent with past years. Yep. Do you want to cover veterans?
No, it's the Joseph Dwyer is like a peer-to-peer program that we fought to get money for, and we always like to point out that's there. This is connecting veterans that are going through any kind of issues and coming back home with other veterans that have been trained to help out, if whether it be just needing somebody to talk to an actual crisis that they might be going through, someone to reach out to that they can relate to, and that there is funding for that program through your veteran service to expand that and for knowledge of that program. This is going back to the cap thing. It's like we're the 9 for 90 I mentioned earlier of like what we're mandated to do as opposed to what we have flexible money for. So when I say 9 for 90, we have 9 programs and it changes every year, but about 9 programs that we're state mandated to do, and it takes about 90% of your budget typically, with the general county. So then it's like, what are we doing with the other 10%? It's it's things like Meals on Wheels. It's your veterans programs. It's things that are hugely important that, unfortunately, these are the things that are going to be looked to get potential haircuts. It's the only places we have flexibility. So it's like that's why it's so important that we keep our maintained funding. And we want to always highlight when we get wins for the veterans and our services there. But this is why it's vital. It's vital that we keep your resources there so you can keep supporting things like this.
So that is our last slide that we had prepared. A link to our full budget report is available at nisac.org/budget. There are more details about all of the different proposals that we discussed that were included in this year's enacted budget. But if there are things that we have not touched on that you'd like more information about, we're happy to take questions now and follow up with more information if needed.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So, electric vehicles there, how's the federal rollback on, against the states and their mandates on electric vehicles is exemplified by the lawsuit in California? How's that does that affect us too? Is it gonna put everything on hold here?
It's a good question. So right now, the main thing that DEC is concerned about, our State Department of Environmental Conservation, is the Advanced Clean Truck Rule. And so this is the requirement that for every, I apologize. So what we're primarily concerned about is the Advanced Clean Truck Rule, and that is the requirement that's imposed by DEC regulation that every gas-powered truck be accompanied by the sale of a clean, renewable energy vehicle. That is not officially how it is supposed to work, but it's how it's worked in practice. And this is what we've heard from counties, is it's been very difficult to buy new highway equipment because dealerships are requiring you to buy one of each kind of vehicle. The way the regulations are intended to work is that a certain number of electric vehicles are sold each year, and that just gets added to the market of vehicle sales. But all of that is to say that this is imposed based on what California has done, and it's something that's been allowed by the federal government up until this point, is regulating air emissions, and in doing so, regulating clean transportation sales. I think it's an open question what will happen at the federal level, but it could certainly affect New York State's planning.
I think the feds have won round one, so we'll see what happens here. Hopefully he'll put a stop to it here. Not only is it not cost efficient, but it's not even green to begin with, and it's just another more pork for certain political parties, constituents or supporters.
There's certainly been a lot proposed at the federal level, and we'll just have to see how it plays out in affecting New York. I know there was one executive order that tried to put an end to state and local climate planning. I don't think New York State really heeded that executive order, but there's going to be other things coming down the pike. We'll definitely continue to monitor that and let you know how it impacts the state's energy goals. Yeah.
While we're on the EV issue, buses, was there any talk about that with the electric buses for school districts? Repealing that?
Not repealing it, but there's certainly been a lot of discussion about it. School districts, counties, and NISAC as well has brought these concerns to the state legislature and the governor. I think there's an appreciation for how difficult it will be to reach that goal.
Impossible.
Right, but the state
Take
did,
difficult out, it's impossible.
that's totally fair. I would anticipate, and I should say this is unofficially, but this is my own estimation, that there will be some additional flexibility in meeting those goals. What the state did as part of last year's budget was gave NYSERDA the tools to provide more assistance to schools and municipalities about how to reach these goals. There is a bunch of new funding from the Bond Act that's been made available for EV school bus purchases. There'll be more money from the Sustainable Future Program, that new $1 billion appropriation for school bus purchases. But absolutely, I think everybody's realizing how difficult and, perhaps impossible it will be to reach those goals. And so I think the state is taking it one day at a time and planning for this, but officially they're not, considering actually repealing that. I would just anticipate more flexibility in the timeline.
The drastic impact they'll have on not just the school districts, but us as taxpayers paying school taxes. With just the mandates of that alone, let alone the grid not being able to handle it, especially in this area.
It's not just the funding, it's the practicality that it doesn't work in the rural area. One of the concerns that was brought to my attention was our bridges. Because of the added weight of the buses, because of the batteries, our bridges, some of our roads are weight limits, and therefore, the bus can't even go on that road or that bridge, so now they've got to find a different route, which is adding time to the students being on the bus, time it's going to take to get to and from school. The funding really isn't a concern, I guess. It is a concern, but it's the concern that it just doesn't make sense for this area and a lot of areas in New York State. And you've got, I can give you an example. It's my understanding, I can't hold this for fact, this was told to me, that a school district in Pennsylvania had 2 electric buses. It was very cold the one day, and the buses could not do the route because the batteries died.
Right.
So how does this make any sense? That's
Yeah.
just, it's a major concern.
We've heard this concern from a lot of counties, especially about the bridges. We've heard the infrastructure concerns. We've heard about reliability, the range that these buses get when it's really cold, the distances the buses have to travel between some houses on routes. So definitely, we've made NYSERDA aware of all these concerns, and we'll continue to do so. But as you have more local input on what the impact is and why this is really difficult to achieve, we'd welcome those concerns so we can pass them along.
Well, I think the counties, association of counties, or at least probably the majority of them agree with us. Maybe not the more urban areas, it really doesn't affect them, but for other reasons, they wouldn't agree with us either. But I think they just got, put their backbone up and start telling the state, no, just plain no.
Yeah, I will say what NYSEG has officially asked for is more flexibility, and we put this in all of the testimony we submit to the state, whether it's on greenhouse gas emission limits or how they're spending certain money they're collecting for climate purposes. We want more flexibility in what is being done at the state level. What makes sense for an urban school district might not make sense for a rural school district, and it makes sense for counties and other localities to decide what policies make the most sense for their area. I think we can appreciate that the state wants to, weather events and other things that are very costly for both the state and municipalities, but our position continues to be that we need a more localized approach to that so counties can decide what makes the most sense for their community.
Before we go to, I know we're going to talk about the budget and state laws. I do want to talk about also one thing that can impact you is not just laws, but case law. And case law that impacts your county. There was a recent decision a few weeks ago dealing with the even-odd election law. I think you're probably all aware. I'll give you my quick take on it and what that potentially could mean. But so late 2024, what was called, the even-odd law. So in a nutshell, requiring local governments, towns, counties, not cities, to, if they're running odd elections, that the term gets, after 2025, after the 2025 election, the term gets shrunk by one year, to then line all local elections, towns, again, just towns and counties, to an even year election cycle. That's what the law said. Keep in mind too, not your constitutional officers, because it's in the state constitution that your sheriff, your district attorney, your county clerk, that they can still continue to be odd years. This was legislation. To change a state constitution, you need to pass laws in two separate sessions, right? And then a referendum of the people. This was just a state legislation, so the only thing they could change was this. This was challenged in the New York Supreme Court, is our lower court. This was in, I believe, October 2024. The law was ruled void, meaning like it never existed. So for all intents and purposes, this law was off the books, and it couldn't be enforced. We were not moving on this. Fast forward to this past February, petitions are being signed, and people are getting ready for the upcoming election. This case went to the appellate division, the second highest level in the fourth department. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was unanimously ruled that this is a valid law. The spigot turned back on. We're a go for this happening. This was appealed by the counties that are suing, including, I think, Onondaga was the lead on this, but multiple counties are suing on this and towns. The Court of Appeals, New York's highest court, has agreed to hear this case. They're taking oral arguments on September 8th, I believe is the date. Why is that significant? It usually takes about a month and a half to make a decision based on those oral arguments. So we will know before, in my opinion, before the November election, whether this law is on or not on. And that is potentially going to impact even some of those in this room, or definitely your term, how long the term is for these local elections.
All of us are up this year.
You are?
All 15 of us.
Okay. So you're probably I'm not telling you anything you don't know, other than maybe the oral, in NYSAC, we are going to be writing an amicus brief, so a friend of a court, we're submitting to try to keep that home rule power yours. If you want to go to even election, there are counties with even elections, by the way. We just so choose, right? And most of our counties do not, and like you in this room, and that's what we're fighting for. Try to keep that local option local. Okay? Any questions on that or anything else we talked about today?
We did our petitions for full service, saying that
Yeah,
I mean, some, they don't, you have to go back and do petitions.
Right.
yeah. Yeah, you're not unique in that. There's a lot of counties, and we've had that question of we've already done our petition. Some named how long that term will be. So what does that mean? I believe it was the State Board of Elections, but we've heard opinions, and I think they addressed this in one of the cases that they don't think that should invalidate the petitions whatsoever. No matter which way this law goes, that those petitions will still be good. I understand. Yeah, totally. It was the right thing to do.
Okay, anything else while we got them? It's going to be another 12, no, not really. We're going to see you guys at the fall conference.
Yes, we'll be in Western New York this year, so we hope to see everyone there in Niagara Falls.
Early September, right? I think we'll actually be at the conference during these oral arguments. I think it's like we might be September 8th, right?
Yeah, I want to say the 8th to the 11th. Yep, the 8th to the 10th of September, and we'll be at the Convention Center in Niagara Falls.
And your county always has great turnout. Thank you. I know it's not easy. Me driving out here, I know it's not easy to get to and from necessarily, but you put in the effort, and it's important. You need to understand what county issues are happening. So thanks for coming to our conference, and thanks for being in Albany when we need you, and volunteering for NISAC positions. That I see a lot of. I forgot some of you all. I couldn't believe how many from Allegheny County. I know from over the years you helped me so much with education on our end too of things. So thanks for all your input.
Yes, and thank you for your time today. I know we give you a ton of information all year round, but coming out here and hearing from you directly what you're concerned about, what your questions are, is really helpful for us as well. So we so appreciate your time this morning.
Well, we appreciate you guys taking the time to come visit us, and like I said, I think we've got a good early annual tradition going. I hope we keep it going, and we appreciate everything you guys do for us up in Albany. You do the work that we can't, and so for that we're thankful, and extend that to the rest of the staff and Steve and everybody else. So thank you.
Thank you.
So in the interest of time with the rest of our agenda, we're going to have to dump it into old business for a future committee of the whole. Nothing of it's particularly pressing, so I think we're okay on that. Some of it we can actually tackle. It's just administrative stuff we can tackle by email. So with that being said, is there anything else for the good of the order? If not, would anyone care to make a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Legislator Hanchett, seconded by Legislator Havey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and we're adjourned.